the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom believe the federal government is operating way, way beyond the confines of the Constitution. And in general, of course, they are correct. The federal Leviathan is out of control. And the constitutional fix for we the people is a never-before-triggered Article 5 Convention of the States to amend the Constitution and stop the federal government. Joining me now from Southern California, Executive Vice President for Citizens for Self-Governance, Mike Ruthenberg. Mike, it seems like we've been stuck on 4 states approving an Article 5 Convention of the States, Alaska, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. How close are we to getting 4 more, 8 more, 12 more?
Well, it's a complex process, as you know, Graham. And first of all, thanks again for having me on the show. And you're one of the very few people that was covering this a year ago when we were first getting going, because you do understand the gravity of what this can do. So to answer your question, we have passed in 4 states. Last year, we were concurrently offered in 37 different states, which is a record. It's never been done before. Already this year, we're either pre-filed or filed in 20 states, and 12 states passed at least one House last legislative year, and this year we expect that we should be able to get it done. So
12 houses. So does that mean that it goes to their Senate, whatever their version of the Senate is, then for ratification?
Yeah, I should say 12 chambers, because some of them it might be the Senate, and then it has to go to the House, or the other way around.
Okay.
But some of them carry over, some of them, of course, don't. And we've gained a lot of experience. We've gained a lot of momentum. And I know that with the current endorsements that are coming in, it's crazy what's happening.
Well, you speak of the endorsements, and one of them is a very well-known governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, who just recently came out of the blue and said, hey, I'm in favor of a convention of the states, and he also proffered a few amendments that he would like to see as part of our Constitution. Roll tape.
To restore the principles of federalism as it was intended by the founders. The Texas plan adopts what about 10 states have already voiced support for. It's called the Repeal Amendment. It would allow a 2/3 majority of states to override any federal law or regulation.
Also, an override process for an out-of-control Supreme Court, which is essentially what we have now, where the states can override decisions coming out of the Supreme Court that many would call radical, legislating from the bench, for example. He's also in favor, I believe, of a balanced budget amendment and limits on taxation, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing I saw from his plan that's missing is term limits for Congress, which I used to be against, by the way, but now I see the process. I think our process has been hijacked, or it's broken, and I think we need term limits for Congress.
Well, I agree with you. And when you think about what the specific amendments that Senator Abbott is talking about, and it was very intentional what he did, calling it the Texas plan. If you remember back when the Constitution was first formed, the Virginia plan laid out a lot of the things that would help the Constitution to succeed. And what Senator Abbott has done, Governor Abbott has done, which is he's quite a constitutional scholar, is he is trying to lead the way for the other states to be able to see this thing through and create the vision that is going to be needed in order to make it happen in all 34 states.
So we've been talking about this now, and you've been promoting it for a year or more, pedal to the metal, if you will. Why the minutia? Why is it taking so long? Is it because this also not only is a constitutional process, but it's an educational process?
Correct. Not correct. Not only is it a constitutional process which is designed to be slow, it's an educational process, and the other thing that drives this is fear and resistance to change. People don't like change, and when people need to be educated, there's so many people that don't have a real clear idea of the Constitution. A lot of people don't understand what our founders intended. A lot of people, the only real constitutional education they got was in 8th grade.
Right. So when we hear the people who object to an Article 5 Convention of the States, maybe they're fearful of it. One of the things that's brought up is a so-called runaway convention. And what some people have suggested is, for example, the Second Amendment being written out of the United States Constitution. But it simply cannot happen unless 3/4 of the states want to get rid of the Second Amendment, correct?
It's so true, and it's a crazy thought that this process could actually run away. The bar is so high. First of all, you said yourself how slow and painful it's going, and then you need 34 states to even call the convention. Whatever should come out of that then has to be ratified by 38 states. 3/4 of the states have to agree. That's a pretty high bar to clear. And talking about Second Amendment, Governor Abbott is clearly the governor of a state that cherishes the Second Amendment more than any other state, arguably so. And if he thought that the Second Amendment was at stake as a result of this process, don't you think he'd say something?
I think he would. And Thomas Sowell, by the way, has also endorsed a convention of the states. And I think the point is that the framers of the Constitution put this emergency ripcord in there for a purpose. And I think it's time that we pull it. Mike?
It was intended to be used, and now I can't think of a better time than right now. Look at what's happening. Look at what Trump is doing. He's taking the PC out of communication, and people are sick of what's happening in Washington, D.C. The time is ripe.
Break the glass, pull the lever. Mike, thank you.